It's the Villains Talk Show with C4, Sarah Vike, Insanieac, and Sir Jeremy and the Great Grease Goblin.
Sounds like a fashion show.
Thank you. I like to think I'm that good looking. Hello and welcome.
You should do like the little chest shake dance when you start the Villains show.
No, you shouldn't.
Hello and welcome to the Villains Talk Show. We are the villains. I am C4, accompanied with Sarah Vike and Insanieac. Unfortunately, Sir Jeremy is out tonight with the family, and Grease Goblin is working. We normally do our shows on Wednesdays, but we were all busy. It was St. Patrick's Day. I celebrated in my house. It was nice. It's nice. I missed last year. I mean, my hair's green. It's whatever. Anyway, but we're doing the show today, and today... What was that?
I said you gotta wear something that's cheating.
You
don't get away with just having green hair.
I wore this yesterday too. Actually, I didn't say that. I wore this today.
None of us can see what you're wearing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
If you only have your green hair, then you can't get away with it.
It works. Did it for the day, no, that counts. I'm Scottish anyway. Count. It counts.
No, if you live that all the time, it's not a change.
Scottish and Irish are not the same thing.
Anyway,
you should know that.
We have our guest here. Her name is Fern. She was supposed to be on Sunday, but we started too late for her, which is understandable. Known her for a long time. She is here to talk about our topic today, which is scouting camps. Reason why she is our expert or our guest on today for that is Fern here has been, at least, I mean, recently, as you were just telling us, you haven't been part of the Scouts program for a little bit just because of how busy you are, but you've been essentially part of Scouts for, I'm not even going to answer for you because, what was that?
My whole life, basically.
I'll turn you up a bit. But yes. And the only...
There's no reason to turn me up. I can get loud enough, don't worry.
I
started with, so there's actually a difference between Scouts and Guides, which is the first misconception. Technically, they were originally started by the same, power couple, the Baden-Powells. So there's Lord Baden-Powell and Lady Baden-Powell. I don't, do you want me to, just jump into history? Because,
Hey, you just start talking. Yeah, you just start talking. We don't know nothing, so please.
Okay, so... Scouting 101. So my dad and brother were part of Scouts, so I don't know this, but I've always wondered, so I'm very interested to hear this. So it was originally started by, you know what, I'm gonna grab my books to make sure that I'm fact checking. But it was started by Lord Baden-Powell, and he was an extremely brilliant, super interesting gentleman who was around in more than 100 years ago, I feel like. The Boer Wars, maybe before then. No, after. And he was really interested in quite a bunch of different military tactics, and he wanted to get the youth involved in not necessarily the military itself, but he wanted to find a youth program or a way to train youth to be more what the military was looking for. So it was sort of started as a youth branch of the military,
like a youth military arm.
Yeah, exactly. And it came from the term scouting is, in a sense, he coined it or started using it because of the word scout to scout ahead, and he was looking for people that were always prepared, which is why our part of the scout law is to be prepared. I'm sure you've seen this promise. When he did it originally, he started it with wolf cubs. And they're actually based off of the Jungle Book and Mowgli. So when you're a wolf, when you're a cub, there's like all of the leaders will take a scouting name, and often traditionally those scouting names will be like Akira or the like names from the Jungle Book, and then you become a scout after that.
What's the name of
and then
the
a rover
snake?
After 17.
That would
Sorry?
be my name. I was just thinking my name would be the snake from the Jungle Book. But please continue.
I don't remember what the name of the. I don't know how far back it goes, or how like. It depends on the troop. Like some
Name
will
was
only just
Kong.
do.
The
Yeah,
movie
that sounds right.
name might not be accurate to the book name either, though. There's
Yeah, the original
lots
one.
of differences.
The book, I think it was called Sue.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I probably actually have the book here.
But please continue.
So now I'm just because I've done this for a while, I have been out of it for a bit. So I don't really I'm not sure I would consider myself an expert.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's anything that's inaccurate, please let us know in the chat or later on. So, yeah, so it was originally started to, like, teach kids the kind of stuff that he was learning. It's actually been a pretty common theme for ages, you know, that, like, kids these days, they don't spend enough time outside. And that was true even when Baden Powell was starting. And so he wanted to, like, make a handbook for boys to, like, learn some of that militaristic strategy and, like, learn how to be super cooperative, which was his hope. He wanted to teach them, like, handicraft and, like, first aid and survival skills, and, like, good manners. There was a bunch of, like, gentlemanly court proceeding stuff, type manners and what have you in his original books, and his, like, training manuals is what they called them. And it was meant so that you could, like, buy a book in the shop, and while, like, having a leader was a good idea because you wanted these kids to be supervised, you could almost start it, like, as a kid yourself. So you could buy a book, and then your friends could buy the book, or you could share the book, and, like, you and your group of pals could rock around and learn something and do some cool stuff. And
That's
he
cool.
used a lot of stories. Yeah. So he used a lot of stories in his teachings and some, like, legends and what have you. Talks about chivalry and the Code of Knights and all of that stuff so that you could, like, learn a lot about it. He was really interested in observation and making sure that the kids knew what they were doing. Talked about knife skills and all that stuff. But it, like, blew up. Absolutely blew up. The first original version was in 1908. This is a reprinting. So, when it blew up, they decided that they were going to do, like, a scouting jamboree. And they still have jamborees today. But this is, like, one of the first one. It was the World Jamboree.
Does anyone
And
else
I
think
don't
of, like, a
remember where it
giant
was
band
held.
and, like, carnival
Yeah.
rides? And,
I
like,
definitely think of that, too.
nice
like a
big
jam.
jamboree. Except they're all just wearing
Yeah.
army fatigues and...
Yeah. When I thought of jamboree as a kid, I thought of, like, a jam sandwich, and that's obviously
Oh.
not what it is either.
Why hasn't no one
I
made a
know.
jamboree jam sandwich? That
I know
sounds-
there was a big world jamboree somewhere, I think somewhere in Canada, that my dad went
Yeah.
to the 80s.
Yeah, they do have them fairly often, and they have, so you can do, like, a district jamboree, which is, like, local, and then you can do, like, a country jamboree, or you can do a world jamboree. So I actually was lucky enough to be part of a world jamboree for the guiding section, which is actually what I'm just about to get into. So the first jamboree, it was all boys, and there were boys that came over from all over Europe, mostly. I think it was held in London, but correct me if I'm wrong. And there's a bunch of, like, sisters, like, girls, siblings of boys who wanted to come too. And all the boys were like, excuse me, no, this is for boys only. No girls allowed. You can't come. And the girls were like, stuff that. And, like, made their own uniforms and, like, sewed them themselves.
Did you
and
say
had
in
their
London?
own flags.
It was in London.
I think so.
Yes.
Thank you. And they, like, made their own flags, and the part of the jamboree is, like, the great processional the first day, so everybody, like, walks in parade, because they're army kids, or army kids, I suppose, especially back then. And they like showed up last with their like homemade like banners and stuff. And Baden Powell was obviously alive at this time and was like, you know what? Like, I don't know anything about girls. I don't know anything about what girls want to do or what girls want to learn, but maybe you do. So it started out with his sister, and then later on his wife, who's now known as Lady Baden Powell. And she started a similar sort of handbook for girls. And it had a little bit less, like, military history and a little bit more, like, kitchen craft and cleaning stuff, but it did still have a bunch of, like, knife working skills and, like, survival skills and first aid stuff that was pretty revolutionary for a girl to be learning at the time. So
That's really cool.
They were never really, like, the same thing. They just sort of operated simultaneously. So Girl Guides and then Boy Scouts. And she called them guides because they were helping, like, I think it was because they were intended to help guide the way and, like, guide the group and the household of people together. Like,
and it's funny you say that because, like, I think about it, like, I never joined either, but I would argue, like, just after hearing the history, that's, like, because it makes sense that Boy Scouts was done first just because of when you said who started it, but if you think about it, Girl Guides is way more famous. Like, I mean, or at least it seems more ubiquitous, would be the better word. Like, you don't, like...
I'm familiar with the definition of ubiquitous.
So ubiquitous means more widespread and more common. So, like, I was less likely growing up to hear of a boy in Scouts. And if they were in Scouts, it usually meant they eventually went on to like, cadets. And I think I knew maybe one boy when I was growing up who did that. But, like, in terms of Girl Guides, like, when I knew quite a few girls. Like, it was at least, like, 1/5 or 1/4 of my classes. The girls were always in Girl Guides. And so it's just funny, at least in my experience, it was more prevalent. And it was more, it was more, not accepted, but it was more like when my little sister didn't want to do...
More common, definitely.
Yeah. So
I definitely had the opposite experience, but maybe that's just because my family was involved in Scouts. But I don't...
Yeah.
I honestly think you're the first girl guide I've met who has told me she's a girl guide.
Forever.
Yeah.
Well,
I never knew any girls.
That's fair. So I don't necessarily have the most common books. I will just pull out some of the ones that I do.
Oh, we're getting a free
So we can show them.
apartment tour.
Free library tour.
Oh, thanks, Fern. It's awesome.
Yeah, I have quite a few books just because I honestly do really enjoy the history of it. And I think part of the reason is because, like, it's become more prevalent because there has been some controversy for Boy Scouts in the past.
Yes.
And I can't speak to it super duper too well, but I do know that Girl Guides has made a very concerted effort to make sure that just because we have been previously called Girl Guides doesn't mean that it's specifically one gender focused. We have been known for a lot longer than people give us credit for being open to having people of all races, people of all colors, people of all creeds, and people of all genders. So, I mean, there's been quite a lot of newest information that the guiding organization as a world organization has come up with in the last even 7 to 10 years that I'm unfortunately can't speak on because I haven't been as heavily involved as I would have liked to be. But there's definitely been a lot of moves made to make sure that we're super duper inclusive. So, yeah. When you started with both Boy Scouts and Girl Guides, and I'm going to continue calling that partially because I don't know what they're calling themselves now. I don't know if it's just guides or if they've changed it.
I know it's Scouts Canada now. I do know that.
It is Scouts Canada.
It's now
Okay,
Scouts
yeah.
Canada.
In Canada, it's Scouts Canada. I don't know what it would be in the States.
Yes.
Let's look
It
it
is
up
not.
while you
I
keep
believe
talking. I'm here. Unless Insaniac
Alright,
wants to
check
do
it out.
that.
And then
I
guess
already know
Guides
the
Canada.
answer, John. I know the answer,
Sure.
and it's Boy Scouts in the States.
Ooh.
I don't know about
It
the
is called
girls,
Boy Scouts.
but it is called Boy Scouts in the States. It is a separate organization completely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not familiar.
So,
with that.
Scouts Canada and Guides Canada, when you, like, go up through both programs, originally started out for kids, I think they were the same age as, like, the original name. So, like, Guides and Scouts are, like, junior high level. So, even to, like, this day, when I'm trying to, like, keep in mind about what age group things are, I still reckon it back to Guides and Scouts, because that's the way that I grew up. But Guides is grade 4 to grade 6, if I remember correctly. No, grade 6 to grade 9 is Scouts. Is Guides.
Yeah, I know. I used to know for the Scouts. I don't know if it's. I don't think it's changed, but as of probably like 5 years ago, it was 6 to 8-year-olds are Beavers, 8 to 10-year-olds are Cubs, 10 to 13 or so is Scouts, and then beyond that, as teenagers, you're Ventures, and then when you're young adults, you're Rovers.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I don't
I've
know
got it here.
the Guides equivalent.
Okay. So I'm slightly wrong. So Guides is 9 to 11. And then they made a younger group for 7 to 8s, and they called them Brownies. And then they have an even younger group for 5 to 6s, and those are Sparks. And then once you age out of Guides, you can be a Pathfinder from 12 to 14. And then they call them senior branches from 15 to 17. And the senior branches often will do their own trips. They can go all over the world if they do the fundraising for it, and if they do the work to get there. And there's lots of planning and stuff involved. But they're also often expected and encouraged to help out with the younger groups too. So I started in when I was 5 years old doing Sparks, and I went all the way up from Sparks, Brownies, Guides, Pathfinders, and then I was a senior branch for a while. And when I was in Guides, I believe, Guides and Pathfinders, somebody can do the math on it. Don't tell me what the math is, but somebody can tell me. I'm pretty sure I was in Guides. I went...
Sarah, you're a math teacher. Do the math.
Well, she needs to tell me
math now! No, we said math!
In 2006, I went to the World Jamboree, or what's equivalent of the World Jamboree, for Girl Guides. So they called it... Oh, man.
It is still Girl Guides, by the way, at least from what I'm finding online in Canada.
Okay.
It's just Scouts Canada that changed it.
Scouts Canada and Guides.
Yeah.
Is that, but there was a World Jamboree in Guelph, Ontario. So I did a lot of grant writing and a lot of fundraising, a lot of bottle drives, so many bottle drives, to get enough money to take... And I went with a provincial troop. So when you first sign up, should you choose to sign up, either as an adult mentor or as a child or a caregiver of a child, when you go onto the website, you can tell them where you are, and you can tell them what age you're looking for, and they'll match you up with a couple of different groups that are in your area. You can tell them what night you want to meet. And every unit is slightly different. So they all start with a book. This is a very old Pathfinder book. I don't know if it's got the year that it was put in, but this is a Pathfinder book that I used. So this one came out in 2006, so it doesn't look like this anymore. But you start with a book, and there's lots of things that you can learn in it. There's a ton of badges that you can learn. You get the very quintessential, like, badge sash across the chest, with the uniform. And with every unit, every group of girls that you work with, it's up to the people that are in the unit, the leaders and the girls, to figure out what it is they want to do. So if there's girls, or if there's kids in the unit that are super interested in, like, hiking or survival skills, they might do a lot more survival skills. If they're more interested in shopping, or if they're more interested in science, maybe they're going to do more of that kind of stuff. but there's the intention for the books has information from a broad range and a wide variety of stuff, and the kids get to make it their own, which is really cool. And what that means is if you were a guide and you were disinterested because the group that you were with didn't deal with things that you were interested in, then honestly all you had to do was find a different unit that may or may not be meeting on a different day and probably having a totally different experience. So it always kind of breaks my heart when people are like, yeah, I used to be a scout or I used to be a guide and it was boring and dumb. And I'm like, no, you just weren't with the right people. It's legitimately a really awesome program.
Well, it kind of reminds me of I was part of a Jewish youth group growing up, only for a couple of years, and I remember that did help me quite a bit, considering all the camps I'd went to were horrible before that. I was like, I was trying to think of it before we started. I was talking to Insanieac and Sarah about it. Oh, I don't think I told Insanieac the story, but my first camp was I went to a Christian camp. My parents didn't know it was a Christian camp. It was just, I'm not going to say the camp's name. It's a great camp. But they just looked at the camp name and they're like, oh, week-long camp? Oh, we'll send Jonathan there. We'll send C4 there and he'll have a great time. And then all of a sudden they say, oh yeah, so we do masses every night before we eat. And I'm like, what? What do you do? And that immediately ostracized me. So I was a fat Jewish kid at Christian camp. And I still had a great time. You know, funny enough, I had a great time. Better than I did at the only Jewish camp. But the funny enough is, like, I had more fun at day camps growing up. And that was basically, I learned to do pottery then. That's how I first started singing.
Definitely, like, again, it depends on the unit, right? Some people really love doing the overnight camps, and, like, they will take their kids backpacking. Like, I have seen the guides, which is the 9 to 11-year-olds, who will go backpacking. They have to have a group that's game, and I have leaders that are game, but they're, like, they can take their kids and do that if they want to. Like, the Girl Guide unit, or the Girl Guide, like, organization is totally allowable for that. But then there's some that would much rather do weekend camps, and whether that's weekend camps in a tent or whether that's a weekend camp in an established like lodge, or sometimes they'll just do day camps. And then even as a guide, we did sleepovers. One of my favorite sleepovers was I'm realizing the mild insensitivity of this topic. It's not mild, it's kind of insensitive, but our parents conspired with my guide leaders to, like, take us away from our parents and, like, surprise us with a trip. So it was like a kidnap camp, which, looking back, probably was not amazing.
I was good.
But I mean, like, literally we were all up, we were all, like, still in our pajamas because it was supposed to be a pajama day, and just, like, the leader, we knew we were going somewhere, but we didn't know what time. It was just like, we're gonna have a trip today with the guides. And they showed up 3 hours early and were like, we don't care that you're not dressed, get in the van, we're going somewhere. So, like, it was intended to be super funny and great, and it ended up being amazing, and we had a great time just, like, rocking around. And then at the end of it, we went to the, there's a Calgary, in the town that we're in Calgary, there's an office building that used to have, like, a merch shop. And it shares a parking lot with Scouts Canada. Scouts Canada still has the merch shop. Calgary Guides does not. Unfortunately, it's all online now. But they have these badges that say it's a sleepover on them. And we, like, didn't expect to get a badge because usually you have to earn them. But they were like, you guys did so good and you, like, listened to all of us and we had a great time today, so we have these badges for you. And we all, like, flipped them over and we're like, what? I don't understand. Like, what is this? And it says it's a sleepover, and we're like, why are we getting a sleepover badge? Like, we didn't sleep over. Like, why? And they were like, it's a sleepover right now. That's so exciting. Like, it's a sleepover. So we actually ended up sleeping over, like, in that kind of office building, and it's still one of, like, my favorite memories of that was, like, the spontaneity of it, because it was such a small unit. We could just do fun things like that.
I had that reminded me of a repressed memory from when I was a kid. When I was 10 years old, our friend, our one friend, his dad also had a farm outside the city. And when he turned 11, we all went on a camping trip, or we all went out to the farm in the middle of winter. And we're 10 years old, and he made us sleep in this cabin with a wood stove. So we had to keep our stove going. They didn't. We kept our stove going. And then when we wanted food, he gave us traps, like actual bear traps.
Wow.
And he told us how to set them. I totally forgot about this. This was crazy.
Wow.
Like, we caught a porcupine. And then when we were bored, I'm not going to mention names, but he gave his son the .22. And he's like, just go shoot a tree. And we're like 4 10-year-old boys in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of winter, just, you know, shooting a tree with a .22, laying out bear traps. And I'm thinking about it as like, man, sometimes, you know, like the idea
Honestly,
of just
like,
being Superman, like the super idea of the super manly guy, because that's what his dad was an old farmer, big tough guy. And my friend, if he ever watches this, I don't mean anything bad, but he was he's scrawnier than a twig. And you could tell, like, we always joke about the air of disappointment his dad had for him because he wasn't built. But that was just an inside joke. But, like, seriously, like, his dad would make us do, like, it was fun, but it was, like, the manliest and most dangerous stuff. Like, we're just gonna get on the back of this F-150, all 4 of us in the middle of winter, and don't worry, his dad's driving. We're just gonna drive. Where are we going? Oh, onto this frozen river, because we need to go up and make sure we get some caribou for tonight, or else we're not eating meat. And it's like, damn. I can't believe, like, I was so young, but I can't believe I forgot about that trip.
other than that last paragraph, that kind of sounds like a pretty quintessentially scouting experience.
It's just,
like, there's obviously a lot of, like, paperwork, and there's a lot of insurance. There's quite a lot of, like, paper, and there's quite a bit of training as a, like, Girl Guide leader that you need to complete in order to be considered a Girl Guide leader. There's a lot, like, a pretty strong vetting process for obvious and unfortunate reasons. But the insurance, like, if you want to go whitewater rafting with your kids, you can do that. You need to make sure that you have the insurance, you have the paperwork signed off, but, like, going whitewater rafting sounds fine. If you want to go backpacking with 11-year-olds, make it happen. We can make that work for you.
My super
and
rich...
I really love that it's something that you can just, like, if you can dream it and the kids are interested, make it happen. My
white-collar junior high kidnapped us and took us on a week-long sailing trip on the West Coast.
Hopefully they told your parents.
They did, but they didn't tell us. So we showed up at school, and they told us to get on the bus because we're going on a field trip. And the field trip led to the airport. And then the airport led to a plane. And next thing we know, we're in Vancouver. And then we go into this, and we're like, what is going on? And there's like these 2 sail ships, and they're both like pirate ships. And they're like, yep, your parents signed off on this. You're all going on these ships. And I'm like, I honestly remember saying, like, at the time, being 14, being like, man, I am definitely white bread middle class. If this is my this is what we're doing for junior high. Like, holy crap.
Like, experience.
And I thought, like, I remember sitting on, this is the first time I ever sailed, so it's what made me want to go and be a sailor. But I still remember being on that ship, and because all the kids, right, would do nothing, and I was like, no, I want to help out. But no, they treated us like white collar kids, and it was, man. Sorry.
Wow.
Welcome to yeah.
It's a good thing you're pretty.
Yeah, I know, right? Thank God.
That's not an okay thing to say.
Yeah, I know. Everyone knows that's how you get to me. Just plea to my vanity. But yeah, no, I never really liked camp for that reason. The only camp I ever loved going to was choir camp. I went to choir camp since I was 10 years old. I love my voice. I kept going to choir camp. I've made some of my best friends through choir. As weird as it looks, yes, I am a choral kid.
That's how we met.
Yeah, but no, like, that's the only camp I had. And then when I was, because I used to be very malbehaved. I used to be a very
Who would've
maladjusted kid. No. Before
Wow,
when I was
really?
when I was
Man,
10 years
I feel
old.
Like I feel like you're sugarcoating this.
Well, no.
I am so shocked
No,
that you were
like-
a weird kid.
I feel
Well,
like you're
No,
making
it
this
was
up.
bad.
Okay, but hold on. No.
Guys.
There's a lot going on here.
I
he
used
was,
to be-
He was maladjusted for a number of reasons.
I was
Not just because he was a little shithead. There was like shit going down.
but I was an angry
I feel like you should.
when I was 10 years old, I couldn't sit still in class. I was always angry, and then I started going to choir, and then nothing changed, and then they banned me from choir, and then all of a sudden I just wanted to go back, and that's been my camp. I went to choir camp. I always
that
enjoyed
seems
it.
like
And you
a
know
very
what?
quintessentially C4 thing. If you tell
Before-
him he can't do it, he's like, "Excuse me, what?"
Before anyone says
Yes,
anything,
I can.
all the rumors are true. If you are a male in choir camp, you are one of 4 males amongst 80 females.
I'm sure you had a great time.
I very much did. I made lots of good friends for life, actually. Actually. But yes.
C4 Mama Rainbow says hi.
Oh, hello. But no,
Mother.
that's nice. But yeah, no, that's the camp that I gravitated to, just because I love singing so much and I love performing. I have such a bombastic
I've been
personality.
to so many different camps with scouts.
Wait,
and
we're
guides.
all
I actually was never a scout. But
we're all Albertans, right? Did anyone go to Camp Chief Hector?
No.
Did
Where is
anyone?
that?
I did actually. Yeah.
Did you? I heard, like, as a kid, even though I never went to camp, all the kids who went to Camp Chief Hector, all I would hear is how great they had a time, or like, and all I remember is building this legendary camp in my head called Camp Chief Hector that I never got to go to because my parents would never let me go.
Well, I went to Camp Chief Hector as like a science for a week with school. So I was there for like an outdoor school experience for a couple of days. It might have been a whole school week, but it might not have been. I think it was like the last 3 days. And I really enjoyed it, but I didn't go for like a summer. It's one of the more expensive camps in Alberta. Is Camp Chief Hector. And it shows because they've got a huge program with lots and lots of things that are available to do. If you're looking, it all depends on what kind of experience you're looking for and like what kinds of things you're hoping your kid or you to get out of the experience. I would recommend anybody, if they can, and if they are at all interested, to try and apply and work at camps. They're for me, working at camps was a totally life-changing experience.
I
like
agree
Girl
with
Guides.
you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Girl Guides and like working at camps totally revolutionized who I am, and I can tell you with 100% certainty that like being a Girl Guide and working at camps and going to camps shaped who I am today. If I didn't have Girl Guides, if I didn't have camps and I wasn't put in those kinds of programs, I would definitely be a totally different person than I am now. It helped me get my degree. It taught me what kinds of things I was interested in and why I was interested in them, and got me to the position and the passions that I have right now. So if you are at all, like, if you're a kid, for whatever reason you're watching this podcast, you shouldn't be, but if you're a kid coming out of high school and you don't know what you want to do with your life, I highly suggest trying to get a summer in at a camp.
Why do I feel like that's our target audience?
So much.
Why do I feel so called out? I'm 30. I shouldn't feel that way.
You learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about the world. You meet people from all over. I have met people from camps who like didn't even live in like Calgary like beforehand. Like there were people that came from like Ontario that worked at camps with us. There are people that came from England that worked at camps with us. There are people that came from Australia that worked at camps with us. So we got a huge breadth of like a slice of humanity, and they challenge you. They super challenge you. The like summer camps that I did were slightly different from the Girl Guide camps. Most Girl Guide camps were only a weekend long, sometimes a long weekend if they wanted to push it. But the summer camps that I did, they take a lot out of you because they're a long time. The residential ones that I was in were a week long each. And there's something to be said about, like,
Ooh.
going from sunup to sundown outside, running around with all sorts of crazy people doing all sorts of crazy things for 5 days straight.
I like
and,
how
maybe showering if you have time.
I like how you're suggesting people do that for 5 days, and not like 2 months ago I was telling people, yeah, you know, if you have nothing to do out of high school, get on a ship, do that for 2 years.
Yes.
I did. It turned out
There's
great.
a lot of adventure stuff.
Yeah, you
that
get to
could
see
really
the world for
learn so much
free.
by
You just
yourself.
work like 16 hours a day and get paid like 20 cents a mile. Pfft, who cares?
Perfect. Ideal. Yeah.
Yeah.
They like to joke in my field, we get paid in sunshine and smiles. And it's true. We definitely get paid for the passion of what we do.
Yeah.
So you have to love what you're
Not
doing.
enough. Well,
To be fair,
Yeah.
you are living the dream of Camp Crystal Lake before Jason shows up.
I'm not sure I get the reference.
I
But-
definitely
No,
do.
It's a horror movie.
Oh, yes. Before Jason
Okay.
shows up. Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm never really much of a horror fan, especially horror films that happen about camp, because camp's too important.
What about the Goosebumps
Yeah.
episodes about camps?
I'm familiar with the fact that there are some, but I haven't consumed that media. So sorry.
I was the king of ghost stories. When I the one camp me and both my sisters went to together, I would go and tell my sister stories, and then I'd go back to my cabin because all my cabin mates were still awake because my little sister was young, so I got to go say goodnight to her because she was young. But I'd come back and then I would tell people ghost stories because I love to read, right? So I'd read like these little tiny ghost stories. And especially like, because we're in the middle of the woods, I was like, I make sure I grab a whole bunch of ghost stories that were all like forest related. So at night, like some days, I would just start reading ghost stories aloud, and it was awesome. I loved it. I love scaring kids. Even at choir camp, that was my thing at choir camp. I was the bass singer, and I'd go around to all the young boys and girls with the chaperones, and I'd read them ghost stories, and they hated me for it, but they loved me for it.
Camp.
They loved and hated me for it because I would do voices too, and then it would always be either really scary or really funny. You know, ones that would scare you, and then they'd just be stupid. So
Yeah. They generally recommend the like second option when you work at camps now. If you want to tell ghost stories, that's fine, but they have to have some type of happy or silly ending.
the best one is What's in the Attic. That's the best funny ghost story. I'm the best at What's in the Attic.
I once made a bunch of kids cry by telling them a story about how the trees eat people because someone had carved a bunch of numbers into the trees around camp, and it was like, yeah, that's how many kids have been eaten by the trees. They weren't even that little. They were like 10 years old. I was like, no, that shouldn't have made you cry.
Be tougher! What are you
There's
pathetic things?
There's definitely something to be said about how well you can tell a story if you can get kids to like buy in well.
Exactly.
That's brutal.
Exactly. They were fine.
That's so brutal.
It wasn't the first time that I'd done something like that either.
You have such a happy face too, Sarah.
Thank you.
That you would just oh dude, you can't help but, especially a young kid, probably just believed you. And oh no.
So I've been working at summer camp since 2010, so I've actually been working at them long enough that the littlest kids that I was a counselor for that year are now, this year, they are in their first year of university, and I am so proud of them. But I mean, I know as a fact also that they're fine, and there were no lasting consequences of telling them the trees were going to eat them.
So they have therapy 30 years later. The trees, they keep staring at me.
I mean, possibly. But now they know the real story behind the person who carved the numbers on the trees, so I think they'll be fine.
It's what you guys don't know is I've lived for thousands of years in this area. This is just the most recent form I've taken. Why do you think my husband hasn't been seen in decades?
I mean, he is definitely seen, though actually they see a lot more of me than of him, so they might believe that.
Oh, that just means the puppet's working well.
One of them asked me a while ago if he was still alive.
See?
I think
Next
every
horror
camp
story
has
might
like
actually.
a very super local ghost story like that. Like the camp
yeah.
that I grew up at,
It's
it was
also
the
the Lake
goat
Shark.
man who like lived. Yeah, Lake Shark definitely.
Yeah,
Who like
Lake Shark,
lived in the back hills, and he was like a satire type, like a satyr type, whatever. What is it when it's like bottom half is like goat? and
Oh
the
yeah,
top
that's an Alberta legend, the Goat Man.
That's it.
Yeah, the guy, some guy that
satyr,
okay.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, up at Rocky Mountain House or something. But that's. I've what? Okay, we'll end on this. So camp ghost stories. I'm at a camp. We're camping in the middle of the woods out in Kananaskis. And we're
Camping at
all
the camp.
and
Oh my God.
yeah, I know we're on a campground because it's like it's like a. But anyway, it's a whole bunch of Jewish kids like and counselors and stuff. And we're just there for 3 days. And we're having a fire at the fire pit. And all of a sudden, we all look, because we all stop, because we're playing music, and the guy at the guitar stops, and we watch. In the middle of the night, this guy bikes through our campground.
Like a bicycle?
Yeah, on
Or
a bicycle. And one of the counselors jumps up, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, you have no lights. Buddy." And he starts yelling after him, and the buddy just bikes back into the path. Okay? So then we're like, okay. And then about 10 minutes later, we see him bike again from the same side back to the same side. He didn't go from here to there. He went all of a sudden back on this side and did the same path as if he did it, and we all stopped. The next day when the park ranger came to empty our garbage bin, like from the bear bins, one of the counselors said, "Yo, we saw this guy biking without lights." Immediately, the park ranger described who we were talking about, and they're like, "Oh, you saw Bobby." Bobby is an actual ghost in Kananaskis. Apparently, he's a cycler who died on the path due to like he was mauled by a cougar or something, and he's one of the most prevalent ghosts in that valley, and we saw him twice. I will always remember that. It's from then on, I forever believe in ghosts. Because I was there, there was like 20 kids and like 5 chaperones and at least 2 full grown adults at this camp, and we all stopped and watched this guy bike through twice.
Maybe that'll be our next topic: ghosts and hauntings.
Oh,
Man.
we should really go back to ghost stories. We did that one early, and like we had Justin on. That was some good ones. Anyway, I would like to thank Fern for coming on and telling us about scouts. This was actually a lot of fun. Very knowledgeable. Thank you so
It was really
much.
cool to learn about it.
Thanks. I hope I did it justice. If anybody's at all interested, please check it out.
Thank you,
Scouting is
Insanieac,
really
for monitoring the chat. And as always, this is Insanieac, Sarah Vike, and of course me, C4. We are the Villains of the Villains Talk Show. Hopefully next time Grease Goblin and Sir Jeremy will be with us. But until then, thank you all for watching. I'm sorry you had nothing better to do, but I'm glad you spent it with us. Like, share, or just follow. I mean, you could just follow or download the app. The app, likeness.com, justlikeness.com. Otherwise, thank you again. We'll see you on One Shot Sundays.
You still gotta put my tags in the intro and outro. You know what I mean?
Bye! You gotta send me that so I can put them in the outro. God, I love this song.
It's definitely from a fashion like show. You should definitely do like a chest shirt. You need to add my tags.
I know. I really do need to add your tags. You need to send them to me.
It's my name. What do you mean?